Welcome to Resilient Humanity, Thriving in the Age of Superintelligence. Now, this is not a technical talk on AI models or algorithms, but rather on what it means to remain fully human as AI accelerates. I'm Ken Hartman. I'm a cybersecurity and cloud expert instructor for the SANS Institute. You can find a variety of different YouTube videos about me and some of the things that I talk about in the SANS Cloud Security channel on YouTube. I'm also the founder of Lucid Truth Technologies, a company that specializes in digital forensics. So if your computer phone's involved in a crime, I usually am the type of person that would be involved in making that sort of an analysis. But this is for the Human Resilience Project, a project that I created to help people stay grounded as technology accelerates. We've all heard the promises of artificial intelligence about this extraordinary potential. For example, curing diseases. In fact, AI has already come up with novel cures as well as new medicines that show lots of promise. We're also very hopeful that artificial intelligence will help us unlock clean energy and be able to more efficiently exploit those sources of clean energy. We're also expecting that AI will be able to free people from drudgery. So, all very good things. But this leads to a question. If all your needs were met, what would you do with your life? Think about that for a moment. Of course, on the other side of the coin, there's perils of artificial intelligence. Every promise carries a shadow. Some of the things that we're concerned about, certainly job displacement. As we look into the future, the not too distant future, we're already seeing that companies are downsizing. They're laying off white collar workers, and we expect that this rate of white collar unemployment will increase over time. We also knew that AI can manipulate our attention. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next few slides. And it can also manipulate our trust. So, as I mentioned, I'm in cybersecurity, so I'm very concerned about trust because, after all, before we'll give our sensitive information to a company, we want to make sure that we can trust them with that. Think about the medical information that you give to your healthcare provider. You want to make sure that you trust them to protect that information. And that's why there's programs such as the Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act, HIPAA, that will work toward ensuring our trust in the healthcare system. But that trust can also be exploited. We also are concerned about loss of control as AI accelerates. That will be another important theme that we're going to explore in this talk. And this can result in an existential risk if AI going forward is not aligned with those of us as humans. There's also, of course, the AI arms race with China. And this is one of the things that's actually accelerating AI development because whoever wins this race will set the rules. The winner will define AI ethics globally and how it's governed. In fact, how the world is governed for that matter. And that leads to the second one. Whoever wins the AI race will also control power. Dominance will bring military and geopolitical advantage. They're also likely to own the economy. AI leadership will determine future industries and who owns the wealth. It also allows them to export their value systems. The victor's ideology will shape global norms. Think about how, for better or for worse, Hollywood has shaped global opinions. So this is not just about technology, it's about values and survival. Now, let's explore how abundance itself creates new problems. Pause for a moment and think about meaning. What personally gives you a sense of meaning? For some, it is their religion. For others, it's the work that they do. For others, it's the community that they belong to. But this scarcity will bring new problems. So, for example, consider lottery winners and what they call the sudden wealth syndrome. Now, all of a sudden, they got a lot of people asking them for money. They got a lot of challenges with how they want to preserve that wealth and so forth. So, abundance will solve basic needs if, again, AI delivers on its promise, but people are still going to seek purpose. And I think we're still going to compete with each other. I think we're still going to gossip. We're still going to care about keeping up with the Joneses. I think that's hardwired into us as through our evolution. So status won't disappear, but the status indicators are likely to shift. And when goods become plentiful, the scarce currency becomes attention. As humans, we have many biases and interesting quirks to the way that we think. One of the interesting ones is threat bias. We can think of threat bias, also called negativity bias, like a smoke detector. We'd much rather that the smoke detector scream at burnt toast than miss a real fire. So we can think of the alert to burnt toast, which really doesn't present us as any danger, as a false positive. But false positives are much better than if it doesn't alert when the fire is actually burning down our house, which would be a false negative, right? So false negatives are much more dangerous to us as humans than a false positive. And we can see this threat bias played out as most people are likely to recall criticism better than they will a compliment. Yeah, that's that bias. It's also how bad news travels faster. And of course, bad news is also the staple of most news media because we're much more likely to pay attention to things that have an adverse impact on us. And of course, this threat bias can be hijacked both by media as well as AI algorithms. Closely related to the threat bias is our tendency toward anthropomorphism. And this is all about agency detection. So agency detection is the cognitive tendency to attribute actions or events to an intentional agent. That is something or someone with goals or a purpose, even when none exists. It's an evolutionary shortcut. For example, we might say that, well, Mother Nature ruined our picnic, when there is no goal. There's no Mother Nature and there's no goal or intention behind the weather patterns. But this is just how we have a tendency to think when we're not recognizing it. It's like a natural pattern. Some people will name their cars, for example. My daughter, I think it's kind of cute, she named her car Cornelius. But false positives were cheap and false negatives are deadly. And this shortcut misfires because we're much more likely to trust chatbots or avatars or robots if they have human characteristics. And then we attribute to them feelings or intentions. So it's this agency detection that kept our ancestors alive. This is why we might look at a piece of burnt toast or the clouds and we might see faces. But in today's AI world, it makes us project humanness onto machines, even when none exist. And this trust can be exploited. So there can be the same tech inside a robot or a stack of servers, but our brain tells us the one with human characteristics is friendlier. And that's anthropomorphism at work. When an AI surprises us with creativity or insight, our agency detection bias whispers, well, maybe it's alive. Now, there's two other terms that we should define up front here. First of all is artificial general intelligence, and the other is singularity. Well, artificial general intelligence, or AGI, is defined as a machine with human-level understanding and reasoning that can apply and learn knowledge across any domain. Basically, it's an AI that matches human cognitive versatility. And then there's the singularity. And this is a hypothetical future event triggered when AI rapidly improves itself beyond human intelligence, thus leading to an uncontrollable exponential transformation of technology and society. Elon Musk has said that AI could surpass human intelligence as soon as 2026, warning of rapid runaway progress. Some experts say that AI capabilities are doubling every 6 months. Sam Altman, he's the CEO of OpenAI, of course, has stated that he believes the singularity is coming within his lifetime and that AI could be the most important technology humanity ever builds, potentially surpassing nuclear weapons in impact. He's spoken both about its immense upside and its existential dangers. Now, the point here is that experts disagree on exactly when, but most will argue that it will occur in the next couple decades. And the real question for me isn't when it will arrive, but how do we as humans prepare? Another important thing to be aware of is dopamine manipulation. Dopamine drives us to seek rewards, not just enjoy them. And apps will hijack this system with variable rewards, like slot machines. You can never predict the exact payout. And this can create compulsive behaviors, such as endless scrolling or constantly checking our phone for messages. And the key insight here is your attention isn't free. It's being monetized by design. We see this with clickbaity news stories or articles in our news feed. Search engine optimization exploits this, so do social media pings and gaming loot boxes, as well as the TikTok engagement algorithm. And then there is virtual girlfriends and boyfriends. Of course, these are currently available online, but I think this is still in its infancy. And robotic lovers are actually being developed as well. But the point with dopamine manipulation is that this rewires our motivation, making it harder to focus on slow, meaningful tasks. Admit it. You've been tempted to check your phone, especially when your mind is wandering during a long meeting. And the concern here is that if AI can already hijack our motivation, imagine what it'll be able to do as it gets smarter. And there's a variety of different companies that are focused on AI safety and AI alignment. One such company is Palisade, and about a year or so ago, they posted a Google document basically expecting to get feedback and input from the internet at large on their beliefs about AI. And one of the things that they pointed out is that AI will surpass human intelligence. We're not the ceiling. Another point they said is that the smarter strategist will always win in the long run. Consider the difference in the ability of an adult to superimpose their will on a toddler. Or another analogy is that cat that walks across your keyboard as you're typing a research paper has no idea why you're in front of that keyboard, in front of that monitor. They don't care about the research paper that you're doing, and they have no ability to understand what it is that you're working on. So that's this difference in intelligence. They also pointed out that conflict is inevitable over scarce resources like energy. Of course, we need energy to produce food and power, and it's key to our survival. They also point out that there is significant opportunity for misalignment in goals between AI and humans. Systems can look helpful, but they can hide their true goals, much like a poker player would, right? That's basically what these models have learned. We see this evidenced as sycophancy as well as sandbagging. So I define sycophancy as basically stroking your ego as you interact with the model, and sandbagging, where they may be cagey and slow to deliver on the results. One reason for that would be to maintain your engagement for longer periods of time. And point number 5, strategic AI is a national security risk greater than nuclear weapons. It's proliferating faster and it's harder to contain. We know that Einstein was said to have an IQ somewhere around 190. And we know that the average IQ of a human is set at 100. So Einstein was roughly double the intelligence of the average human. But I want to ask you, how could one control something that's 1,000 times more intelligent, that has an IQ of, say, 1,000? And if you're feeling a little bit of dread, well, this dread is natural. Next, let's talk about how to live with it. It's human to feel overwhelmed when we're facing massive change, such as the AI advancements that are on the horizon. And when meaning is absent, people often cope in destructive ways. For example, I'm expecting, as increases in layoffs, I expect there to be an increase in substance abuse to numb this anxiety. I expect to see a lot more hedonism and consumerism, where people are chasing quick pleasures, retail therapy, perhaps. Also, overindulgence in digital media, right? Binge watching, endless scrolling in their social media. And I think that all of this will be amplified by AI's ability to exploit dopamine loops. These escapes may feel comforting in the moment, but they make us weaker over time, individually and collectively as a society. So think about these deeper anchors of meaning in your life. And I think struggle itself may be a partial antidote. It helps us build strength, especially if we embrace it intentionally. We all know the story of The Matrix, right? A classic movie. And in the movie The Matrix, ironically, Agent Smith, who's an AI, of course, explains that the first Matrix was a utopia, but most humans rejected it. Why? Because we need challenge to find meaning. Also, in 1994, they did the biosphere experiments. So in Biosphere 2, they had a sealed biodome, and they grew trees in there. People were living, but the trees that grew fell over. Why? Because without wind, they never developed stress wood. Nicholas Taleb, he wrote a book called Anti-Fragility. And he defined anti-fragility as saying that some systems don't just survive stress, but they improve because of it, like muscles under strain, right? If you want big biceps, you got to lift heavy weights. So, what struggles have shaped who you are today? And the point here is that struggle is not the enemy. The absence of struggle is. So, this is the turning point. Our path forward is about choosing intentional struggle that leads to growth and meaning. Mo Gaudat, Another YouTuber, he's a ex-Google executive. He wrote a book called Solve for Happy. And in this book, he developed what he calls face rip. This is a model from this book, Solve for Happy. And in this book, he says that we have these mental illusions that he calls bugs in the brain software. And each illusion is a shortcut that wants to help us survive, but it can now trap us in suffering. The first illusion is filtering. We only see what confirms our beliefs. Right? This is also called confirmation bias. Our brains edit reality like a biased newsfeed. The second illusion is assumptions. We fill in gaps with guesses, and then we treat those as facts. The C is chatter. We have an inner voice that never shuts up. It's constantly narrating and judging and worrying. And we can mistake it for truth, but it's just mental noise. Somebody once said, think of it as graffiti on a billboard. That graffiti is not the truth. The E is our ego. This is our need to be right or liked or superior, and it also keeps us defensive. Then there's relevance. We exaggerate the importance of what feels urgent. It's the email or the comment in our socials or the news headline. And identity. We have a tendency to confuse what we do with who we are. Permanence. When things go wrong, it seems like it feels like it's going to stay that way forever. So confronting these illusions feels awkward at first and painful even. But this is how resilience grows, rep by rep. Solution 2, cognitive sovereignty. This is our ability to choose what we focus on and how we think. Attention isn't just stolen, it's traded in today's economy. You are the product when your attention is currency. Critical thinking is like a muscle. If we don't exercise it, it weakens. Now, here's something interesting. They've done studies with doctors where doctors with AI versus AI alone perform worse. And there's different explanations for this, right? Maybe the doctors tend to override the AI based on their personal heuristics or personal rules of thumb about how they like to, quote unquote, practice medicine. So because of these findings, some would say, well, just let AI do it. And here is the rub. It's tempting to let AI think for us. But resilience means leaning into that discomfort and doing the mental reps. And it doesn't matter if AI is better. We still need to exercise critical thinking. For example, I've realized that I tend to be overly reliant on Google Maps. There's something just comforting when I'm running from the grocery store, which is about a 20-minute drive, to my home. I like to see where my car is on the map and what the traffic looks like and so forth. But as a result, I don't really know the street names, and for more complicated destinations, I would struggle to actually give directions without looking on the map. In fact, when somebody's trying to describe to me how to get somewhere, I tune them out knowing that I'm just going to look up the destination on Google Maps and totally disregard any directions that they gave me. So here's some practical advice. Block time for reasoning and journaling, or also making decisions without any AI prompts or guidance. And I don't think we need to totally exclude AI completely, because AI can actually challenge us. We can use AI to challenge our thinking, or we can play games, right? So memory games and strategy games, and we can even create gamified learning, all of which exercises that muscle. So it's also a question of how do we want to engage with AI? Do we want to use AI to make us better humans or to make us more dependent? So I want to kind of revisit this whole concept of when AI is smarter than the experts. They've also discovered that when doctors rely on AI too much, their own skills weaken. So this de-skilling is real. And we know that AI's improvement curve is far outpacing human learning, right? So humans are finite. AI is only limited by how much compute and memory we want to throw at it in time. And this gap is going to widen regardless. So the real question, do professionals, whether they're doctors, teachers, lawyers, or creators, stop striving, stop thinking, stop innovating? Or do we embrace this intentional struggle of learning even when we know we'll be outpaced? The struggle is what matters, not because we can beat AI, but because the struggle keeps us human. It keeps us resilient and trustworthy in ways that machines cannot replace. So I've got links to 3 different very interesting studies about AI outperforming physicians. Solution 3, cultivate ethical clarity. And by ethical clarity, I mean having deep roots in who you are and what you stand for. Without this, AI and culture will push you wherever the winds blow, whether that's by creating outrage or distraction or fostering conformity. The intentional struggle for us is to slow down, to reflect, and to choose based on our values rather than on speed or convenience. A tree survives storms not just because the wind is weak, but because its roots are deep. Our ethics serve the same purpose. Anchor in the why, whether this is rooted in your faith, your philosophies, your family, service, integrity, whatever it is that gives your life meaning. AI cannot give you values. It only amplifies what's already there. Resilience begins with anchoring on your deepest commitments. We need to connect with the accumulated wisdom of humanity. After all, we're not starting from scratch. Generations before us have faced wars, plagues, upheavals, and have found meaning. Stoicism has a lot to offer, whether this is from writers such as Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius. They taught us to accept what cannot be changed, but to use adversity as a training ground. And there's religions, right? These will typically treat trials as pathway to growth, service, and transcendence. There's also humanism and philosophy that teach dignity and rational reflection, as well as creativity. So the intentional struggle here is to reconnect with these roots instead of chasing the latest distraction. AI is new, but wisdom is ancient. Resilience means drawing on both. Solution 4, deepen emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is where humans hold enduring advantage. Even if robots surpass us in skill or performance, we are wired to find humans more interesting, relatable, and meaningful. And I think that even though AI can emulate empathy, we know as we're interacting with a robot that it actually is just an emulation. Now, a robot could break world records in speed, but we're still going to cheer for human athletes, right? We may find robot Olympics fascinating, but we're still going to want to have the human athletes. We gossip, we compare, and we build identity through these human-to-human interactions. A virtual lover may be efficient, but deep, lasting love requires the vulnerability, the work, and emotional intelligence of human relationships. The intentional struggle. This human connection is messy and it's uncomfortable, unlike clean simulations, but it's also where we grow resilience and find meaning. Human connection's messy, it's inconvenient, and it takes emotional labor. But that struggle is precisely what makes it meaningful. Solution 5, gratitude and meaning making. Gratitude isn't just feel-good stuff. Neuroscience shows it literally rewires the brain away from that threat bias. It creates ballast, like a weight in a ship, keeping us stable when life storms hit. And then there's meaning making. Life doesn't just hand us meaning, we forge it by reflecting on our struggles and finding purpose in them. At first, this gratitude feels awkward, artificial, or forced, but over time it reshapes our attention and it strengthens resilience. Like those trees in Biosphere 2 needing wind, gratitude nourishes the stress wood in the mind. It's a daily practice of creating roots that hold us steady. So try this for just 7 nights. Jot down one thing that you're grateful for and one way that today matters, and see how it shifts your perspective. I played with a lot of different AI models, and I think this was something that I first did when I was testing out an API call to a learning model. And I asked it, what is the meaning of life? And I was thinking about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where, of course, they found that the answer to the meaning of life was the number 42. But I was surprised by the output. It gave multiple different philosophical, religious, and scientific perspectives. So first off were the philosophical perspectives, right? Nihilism, right? Life is inherently meaningless. There's no objective purpose or value. Existentialism. Individuals create their own meaning through their choices and actions. There's no preordained purpose. We are condemned to be free. Then there's absurdism. The search for meaning is an inherently meaningless universe is absurd. We can embrace this absurdity by finding joy and meaning in defiance and living authentically. So I think that answer 42 was an absurdist answer from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Then there's hedonism. The meaning of life is to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. Utilitarianism. The meaning of life is to maximize overall happiness and well-being for the greatest number of people. Or Stoicism. The meaning of life is to live a virtuous life, accept what you cannot control and focus on what you can. Objectivism. The meaning of life is to achieve one's own rational self-interest, striving for reason, purpose, self-esteem, and productivity. Then there's the religious and scientific meanings of life. Theism. Life has meaning as ordained by a divine being or higher power. This often involves serving God, following religious principles, and seeking salvation or enlightenment. There's Buddhism. The meaning of life is to end suffering through understanding of the Four Noble Truths and following the Eightfold Path leading to nirvana. Or Hinduism. The meaning of life is to achieve righteousness, prosperity, pleasure, and ultimately the liberation from the cycle of reincarnation. Or there's evolutionary biology. The meaning of life in a biological sense is survival and replication, passing on one's genes. Then there's cosmology. From a purely physical perspective, life is a brief and fragile phenomenon in the vastness of the universe, ultimately subject to entropy and the eventual heat death of the cosmos. This doesn't necessarily negate meaning, but it frames it within a specific context. Personal perspectives. Relationship. Finding meaning through love, family, friendships, and connection with others. Contribution. Making a difference in the world, helping others, contributing to society, or leaving a positive legacy. Creativity and self-expression. Engaging in artistic pursuits, exploring passions, and expressing oneself. Experiences and growth. Seeking new experiences, learning, personal development, and understanding one's horizons. Purpose and achievement. Setting goals, striving for achievement, finding fulfillment in accomplishments. Or spiritual exploration. Seeking answers to fundamental questions about existence. Connecting with a sense of something greater, or exploring inner peace. And living in the moment, focusing on the present, and finding joy in everyday experiences. I wanted to read all these because I think that different ones will resonate with us. And that brings me to the summary. The meaning of life is not a fixed answer. It's a deeply personal and often evolving question. It's something you often define for yourself through your beliefs, your values, actions, and experiences. And it's okay to grapple with this question and to have your answer change over time. The journey of seeking meaning might be just as important as the answer itself, but you have to do this work for yourself. So I think there's a lot of great insights there in this meaning making, possibly in a sense where there is actually no meaning, is a human desire, something that we were evolved to search for, to make meaning out of the meaningless. Solution 6, connect with community. Hopelessness isolates. Community reconnects. We're wired for belonging. It's one of the deepest antidotes to despair. I think we've evolved over time to belong to tribes. Those that belong to tribes were much more likely to pass on their genes. So this community can be in the form of families or faith groups or colleagues, neighborhoods, or even circles of shared practice. And research shows how resilience, gratitude, and meaning spread outward through communities. But the intentional struggle here is that communities require presence, vulnerability, and sometimes conflict. But that's where the deepest meaning is found. Showing up for others when it's inconvenient, being present in real community rather than retreating into digital comfort. Resilience is not a solo project, but it's built in relationship and it's carried by culture. The pace of change will be unlike anything humanity has ever faced. This is not just about jobs, but about what it means to be human. There's brain-computer interfaces that are at the early stages of development. There's neural augmentation, robotic limbs. These technologies exist and will continue to evolve and mature. Some humans will refuse them. Others will embrace them. Transhumanism. That word may sound repugnant to you, but we already have family members that have pacemakers, or perhaps an artificial limb, or cochlear implants. And it's quite possible that our grandchildren may consider transhumanism the norm, or their grandchildren. And I think that some will choose to augment with embedded AI technology or robotic capabilities. So technology may change our form, but our roots, our values, our meaning, our humanity must remain. Like that tree in the storm, the future winds will blow hard, and our only anchor is the depth of our roots. We can't avoid the uncertainty, but we can choose to face it with clarity, values, and resilience. So far in this talk, we've talked about different metaphors. We've talked about the threat by a smoke detector. And the reminder here is we must respond with clarity, not with fear as we face this uncertain future. We talked about the biosphere 2 trees, how we need wind and struggle to grow strong. We talked about deep roots, let ethical clarity and timeless wisdom anchor us, and how we need community. This is the antidote to dread and to isolation. Resilience is not denial. It's choosing clarity, courage, and meaning in the storm. So I invite you to take one practice from today and carry it into your life. Small ripples become waves. In the end, it's people and not programs that must define our shared future. We can't always control global AI, but we can control how we show up. I invite you to check out the Human Resilience Project. Thank you and goodbye.